Hello my friends. Today I am in the garden because I am just full of frustration and anger, and this is where I like to come to try to calm down and find my center again. The kids are napping right now, so I'm just taking a moment to myself. I'm feeling frustrated, not because of the garden, even though it needs a lot of work, and I plan on coming out here tonight to start remedying some of that. Just feeling frustrated with the whole school system that my daughter's in. And I'm really a hot minute from homeschooling, but that's another issue. So let's get into the garden. Let's talk about what I want to get done tonight and some of the things we're going to be growing for fall and just some of the plants that have been doing really well. It is the middle of September and there are plants that are still holding on strong. I have lost a few tomato plants. That's to be expected at this point. I have pulled out all my pumpkins. That plant was being decimated by pests and powdery mildew, and my dog ended up destroying one of my really productive zucchini plants, and it never recovered from that, so it is just lying dead on the side. Some of these plants, since they're diseased, I'm going to be piling up. My neighbor normally burns his plants at the end of the season. He creates a big burn pile. So I'm going to ask him if he's doing that again this year, just so that way the disease can be eradicated. It doesn't go in the compost bin because you don't want that disease to be just left in your soil. So let's get into this, guys. Let's start all the way on the end. I have not watered this. It did not have a lot of mulch on it. So as you can see, a lot of the plants are dying. I had left a few bean plants to go to seed so I can harvest these seeds and replant them again for next year. The flowers are still doing pretty well in this bed, even though it hasn't really been watered. This next bed, since it does not have any type of contraption over it like the cattle panels, is going to be my fall garden bed because I bought some PVC pipes at a yard sale for $1 a piece, and I'm going to create a little hoop row cover to keep the plants a little warmer throughout the cooler season. As you can see, everything is wild and overgrown, but in here we still have some tomatoes growing. Flowers are in the path, and this is actually my Paul Robeson plant that just looked horrible at the beginning of the season. It had produced a few and then just started dying. Well, then it kind of came back to life. As you can see, the top foliage is nice and healthy. So I didn't end up plucking it, and I'm glad I didn't because we have some splitting because we had some heavy rain, but I'm still getting tomatoes off of it, which I'm very satisfied about. It may not have been the most productive plant, but this striped Roma tomato plant is still, it's on the edge of dying out, but I'd have to say it's over 12 feet tall. My evil olives are still producing, and this cherry tomato plant is also still producing some fruit. I haven't been out here in a while, so as you can see, some of the tomatoes have just rotted out on the plant. That's alright. I'm really eager to pull up this sweet potato plant, but I'm being patient. I'm waiting. I know it's something you should do around the last before your frost comes. But let's really just stop and talk about these pepper plants. There's some plants that are just loaded with peppers, and it took a while for my giant Marconi plant to really take off. You can see they're really tall, but I just don't feel like they've put off a lot of buds. This is a jalapeno plant, and those jalapenos are huge. One thing I really urge you to do, I was cocky this year and I didn't really label my pepper plants. I thought I'm going to remember where they are, or I was going to get to it later. Either case, I didn't label a lot of them. I was cutting up peppers the other day and they should have all been sweet peppers. Lo and behold, the one pepper I wanted to bite into turned out to be, I'm thinking a jalapeno, but it's a real shock whenever you're like, oh, it's going to be a sweet pepper. No, not a sweet pepper, hot pepper. One of the strongest peppers, I think, is the violet sparkle pepper I had. The zinnias, as you can see, have just been blooming like crazy. Over here we have 3 little Jack the Little pumpkins, and I did force this plant to grow on the other side of the fence, and there's at least 5 more on the other side of here. You can see there's a bunch of Paul Robesons over here as I make my way around. This is the loofah gourd plant. As you can see, it's really sprawled out from where it originated, but I have yet to see it produce any fruit. But I didn't nurture it enough on its own, so that's on me. Over here, this bed has just been neglected as well. I had a tomato plant in it, and I haven't really been harvesting the tomatoes. As you can see, they're laying on the ground. But I also had a lot of strawberry plants in here. Well, I still see some of them. I just know this bed's going to need cleared out. But the zinnias are still producing well, so I'm just going to leave them. They're not even showing any signs of like mildew or spot, any kind of disease. So I'm just going to leave them be. Another part of the garden that I've really neglected is the 2 beds that I put up by the greenhouse. One plant just took off in it and I've just let it go. It is the nasturtium, and I don't really eat it. I really like the flowers. But I think I'm going to harvest some of this and either freeze dry it or dehydrate it or just let it dry upside down, because this is a really great source of vitamin C, and cold season's coming around the corner, so it'd be nice to be able to have something to boost your vitamin C intake. But as you can see, this plant is beautiful and it's taken up a lot of the garden space. The other bed that's been sorely neglected is this one over here. I managed to harvest 1 field pumpkin from this plant. As you can see, this one is just riddled with powdery mildew. And I had some tomato plants in here. The plants actually look pretty healthy if you look at them closely. I just never stake them, so I'm gonna put that across the bed so we can harvest some of those tomatoes later on. We have a bunch of beautiful fruit on the plant still. So I have one more garden bed in the front of the house where I had potatoes and garlic growing. Since then, I did not put anything else in it. It did have bee balm that grew and ended up flowering, and it was very beautiful. I know you can harvest that and make tea out of it. I just never got around to it. I also need to get out here and harvest some raspberries. They're looking beautiful. Some of them might be too ripe. Of course, the year I have raspberries coming out my butt, if you will. My daughter doesn't like raspberries this year, so that's been disappointing. Over here, I have more tomatoes and pepper plants. As you can see, a lot of these plants are just loaded down with peppers. I really need to give them a boost of nutrients. I need to fertilize, because I think pepper plants never really get sick for me. The peppers just end up getting smaller because I'm not feeding them enough. They need more fertilizer. This sweet potato plant is sprawling and beautiful. And I always like to get ahead of myself. Look at these powdery mushrooms. Anybody know what they are? But I've pushed some of the plant aside. You can see down there, there's a potato peeking. Over here, these ones are very noticeable. Also, I can't wait to get the pantyhose off of my sunflowers. I have lots of birds and squirrels around here, but I really wanted to save the seeds from my flowers this year. They grew big and strong and tall, so I covered them with pantyhose. I had a pair that had a rip through them. Waste not, want not. Well, that was my little tour of the garden. I'm very happy with everything I've gotten from it. I have the freeze dryer loaded right now with zucchini from, oh, speaking of zucchini, don't fall in the process. I knew I had one growing over here. I have this freeze dryer loaded with zucchini, 2 trays of peppers, and some celery that I had bought from the store, but I don't use celery very frequently, so I think freeze drying is going to be the best method for me to just keep it on hand. Well, my plan worked. I'm feeling a lot less angry, a lot less stressed, don't have that heaviness in my heart right now. Just gonna come approach things with a level head, and I got some things done in the garden, some much needed food that needed harvested. I got to share the garden, talk about my garden, and yeah, I'm glad I made this video. So if you like this video, my friends, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more from me in the future, go and subscribe. I'd love to have you. Well, until next time, my friends. Evidence of sunflower seed thievery.